Hey, B-Siders. Welcome to another episode of Bravo for the B-Side. This is Jim.
And this is Danny.
And this episode, sweet relief.
I'm super excited.
Not only did we pick something that was good,
Yeah.
but it exceeded expectations and was one of the most fun films we've watched in a good while.
It's a delight.
Yeah. I mean, it's a comedy, so it should be fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not to say that, other films aren't good and fun, but this was fun because it was funny. Very funny. And charming. But we'll get into that. Trying to think what's happened. I haven't heard of anybody passing. It seems like every episode we've been losing somebody.
Memorializing someone.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say it hasn't happened. It just hasn't crossed my radar.
Right.
It's been a busy couple of weeks.
Indeed it has.
Yeah. There is, well, let's see. Episode before last was when we were recording and waiting for a baby to be born.
Yes.
After, good God,
1,000 years.
Oh, yeah, that poor girl.
Yeah.
That was a long damn labor.
36 hours?
Yeah. But it paid off. Bouncing baby boy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Our new little buddy.
Newest family member.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one of two family members because they're very close.
Yes,
right.
That's right.
Yeah, because I honestly didn't even know about the second one coming.
I did. I thought you did as well.
No.
Well.
I don't always get brought into the circle.
It doesn't always trickle down.
Of info or across.
I don't know. I just assume you're in on those conversations all the time. So
I don't have Facebook. I'm not on any of the text chains with the family. I'm just my own little island out there.
There are no secret text chains with the family.
I know there aren't any secret ones. I'm just not on them.
But there aren't any. It's all individual texts.
Well, I don't get any of those either.
Well, maybe text somebody.
Anyway, so little baby boy Thomas.
Yes.
Burst into the world.
He did.
Cute, adorable. I mean, like most babies.
Like many babies.
Yes. And I say that because I'm one of those folks who, in my prime, Seinfeld was a huge thing, huge series. And they had, a lot of really good episodes bringing the truth out about some things. Like one, they go to visit their friend's new baby, and every time they look in the crib, they do that kind of,
oh God,
like, what's wrong with that kid kind of thing. Because, I'm sorry, not everything that's newborn is super cute. It's just the way it is.
And we have spent a lot of time with Thomas over the last couple of weeks.
We have.
Yeah.
I have had so much baby time.
Mm-hmm. Lots of good snugs.
Yeah.
And my other cousin also just had a baby boy, Mateo.
Yes.
Who we have not met in person.
No.
But we have seen pictures. And Mateo has a full head, the head of a full-grown man, jet black hair.
Which is why I hate him already. We're back to the hair thing.
And he is adorable.
He is. He looks just absolutely lovely. And I don't know if they're coming for Thanksgiving.
I hope so.
Not. But yeah, I hope we can see him soon. They live further away. Mm-hmm. And we're literally minutes away from Thomas. So
yeah,
it's wonderful. So yeah, it's been really good in that respect. Mm-hmm. Can't think of too many other things that have happened. We don't have any news on this front. I mean, we don't have any new news from, David. I mean, we talked about it. Primal Games is coming out next year. We'll be taking care of it then and having him on then.
I did see a post from David.
Oh, okay.
On Facebook, wherein he is remastering Redwood Massacre 2 Annihilation into 4K.
Oh, that's right.
Mm-hmm. And he He said he regrets desaturating the movie as much as he did because he's loving all the full colors.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. So we don't even need to get into this movie yet. We can already throw a lesson out there. So David Ryan Keith, lots of movies, and we're not talking lots of, just backyard stuff. He's gotten investors. He's, still full indie, but he has made some brilliant films.
Yeah, they're full-on productions.
As a director, he is hands down, in the top 10. I don't want to rate anybody, but, we know a lot of really great directors personally.
Yeah.
And he is one of them. However, it doesn't mean he's a master at every element of post-production.
Right.
And we'll get into this when we do get an interview with him to talk more about the hard choices you have to make as an indie filmmaker. Can you do 4K? Does the distributor want you to do 4K? Right? Because doing this, you have to have something kind of in the wings because you can fully edit fully package your film, do all the post-production, then go out and find a distributor, and then they might tell you that's not going to work.
He said it's like watching a whole new movie.
Right. And he makes these decisions not lightly,
right.
but it's what has to be done. And it's also within the realm of what he knows how to do. He actually taught himself color correction,
mm-hmm.
right, to get it right. And because he sent us samples before and after. What do you think of this one? Before and after. What do you think of this instead?
Right.
And which is amazing. I love that.
It's really fun.
Yeah. But I can't wait. We're going to have to buy it again.
Yes.
I want the 4K. I want to see it. I want to live in it.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. Yeah. Kyle Hester,
mm-hmm.
who I've mentioned, folks, look him up on YouTube. Kyle Hester, actor guy. He did put out a video. Unfortunately, Preacher 6 has hit another monumental slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's realizing all of the things that need to be done.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of knew that, but now he's seeing the length of time it's going to take. That's really it on the news front.
I have one more bit I would like to, I guess, put out a little plug for somebody.
Sure.
Okay. So, as we may have mentioned, we play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
I've been having a blast with my 3D printer that I traded myself to, and printing and painting miniatures for our games because it's fun and I like to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have entered a couple of painting contests.
Yes.
I didn't win the last one that I entered. I'm in one that is currently ongoing. The voting is active at the moment. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about this guy who runs these painting contests. His name's Miguel. His tag is MZ4250. And what he does is he sculpts all these D&D figures from the books. And he does a fantastic job. And he has a Patreon. And if you're into miniatures and Dungeons and Dragons, you should check it out because it's a wonderful resource and really cool.
It is. We use many of them.
Yeah.
And so the deal is if I remember, you pay for membership on the Patreon,
mm-hmm.
and you're allowed to use these figures, or you get access to what is it?
Okay, he puts all his sculpts out for free,
right,
on all the downloading websites.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a member of his Patreon, you get access to his file folders of the sculpts. So it's just an easier way to find them,
right?
Because you can search. And he has different tiers, and there is a tier that you can get. I think it's $10 a month or something, but you can print and sell the sculpts commercially.
That's what it is.
I have a lower level because I don't want to print them commercially.
Royalty free.
Right. Correct.
Yeah.
But you do have to attribute them to him.
Yes.
I'm a member because it allows me to go in his painting contests and interact with other Patreons and stuff and, patrons. And I think it's fun.
Well, I mean, we've saved a fortune
Oh yeah.
on these. I mean, between the 3D printer and then this guy with just throwing it out there for everybody. God, we were spending hundreds of dollars on miniatures
Yeah.
to get, something that looks somewhat like a character, and then a couple monsters and some peripheral stuff. And now it's just like, print it.
Yeah.
Print it.
Yeah. If I want a figure, I can have it within a day.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the figure, but I can have it within 4 hours. Printing's kind of slow sometimes.
It is. And then there's the painting.
Yeah.
But, they all look good.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to plug MZ4250 because he's a cool person and I like using his stuff.
Yeah, and rightfully so, because he's doing something. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who have super meticulous ones, right? But they cost more in some cases,
right,
than getting a figure. So yeah, I mean, he's doing a service to everybody, and just because he loves doing it, and that's almost, that's as good,
right,
as I make movies because I love them, sort of thing. So yeah, we'll push anybody we can.
Yeah,
because they're doing good stuff.
Well, yeah,
and that's kind of what it's all about. Well, okay, should we get into this movie?
Sure.
What's it about?
This movie is called Buddymoon. It was made in 2016, directed by Alex Simmons, written by Flula Borg, David Guncioli, and Alex Simmons, starring David Guncioli, Flula Borg, and Claire Coffey. Not rated because, independent film. The budget, this is interesting because I looked all over for the budget. In one place I saw it was like 5,000 or 50,000. In an actual interview with David Guncioli and Flula Borg, they claimed the budget was about $50. And according to Flula, that was mostly snacks from the grocery store for him. But it was self-funded through savings and credit cards.
And if folks don't know, so David is the star of Grimm. Flula is a little harder to explain to people. So, because it's funny. So we were at a cousin's birthday just yesterday, and talking with another cousin on movies. We talk movies and stuff, and we brought this one up and trying to explain Flula. And it wasn't until you showed him a picture.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I know that dude. He saw him in another movie that I had.
Yeah.
Or a show. That's, yeah. So Flula is famous for his YouTube channel.
Yes.
I know him from Silicon Valley later in the seasons when they are going to HuliCon. And Richard runs into his ex-girlfriend, and her new boyfriend is Flula. Flula Borg. And he, we came up with the name of it.
Peace Fair.
Came up with this app called Peace Fair, where it's a virtual charity that you use to grow virtual food for virtual villages.
Yes.
And yeah, Richard hacked his screensaver and called it Poop Fair and this whole thing. And that is, honest to God, the first and last time I'd seen Flula in anything.
Yeah, his face is familiar. I think because he pops up and stuff, little bit parts now and then.
Yeah.
But he began his career as a DJ. And then started a YouTube channel, and that kind of took off. And then he began interviewing people on his YouTube channel, and it's a whole thing.
It is. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to put some focus into there. People can maybe picture what's going on as we're going on.
So here's the logline.
Yeah.
When a former child actor is dumped by his fiancée days before the wedding, his excitable German best man takes him on the honeymoon instead. a backcountry trek in the remote mountains of Oregon.
Tracks.
Yeah, accurate.
And I do want to mention, because that article you sent me, this thing was done in 10 days.
Yes.
So, yeah, there's more stuff we'll talk about as we get there.
Okay.
But should I start?
Do it.
Let's do this. So we open with some text on the screen about Lewis and Clark. And then there is a narration with some clips playing. They're very funny. And then we're watching an audition tape. And the guy in the tape is pretending to be rowing, clearly performing a Lewis and Clark scene. And it's David, who in the movie is named David.
Yes.
That's, what works. Do what works.
Mm-hmm.
So then what pops up is on the screen a few days later. So David is shredding his wedding invitation, sitting on the floor in a pretty empty living room, drinking. And then his best friend calls, and the voicemail greeting says David is on his honeymoon. So that pretty much paints the picture right there.
Yeah.
We cut back and forth a little bit, and we know it's his best friend because it's Flula, and this is your best friend.
This is your best friend.
So later, he's at the door wearing a sun costume.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we were learned that David's fiancée canceled the wedding and took all the furniture. Flula says tells David he needs to get outside. He's been inside for a week. David says he should be on his honeymoon camping and points to a small pile of camping gear in the corner, which is all that was left. Then he goes into this great little banter. Flula does, evoking the movie Rudy. Rudy. Telling him, David, that he can get out there and do it. So he tells David they're going on his honeymoon together. So then they're on the road, and Flula asks what to expect. So David explains the camping. It's going to be a couple days of hiking, camping in different spots, ending in a night in a large lodge. So they're driving into the deep woods, and it's beautiful, by the way.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose this region of the country is beautiful anyway, but cinematically gorgeous.
Yes.
Very, very nice tone setting. So as they're driving into the woods, Flula says that he's heard there are magical creatures in the forest, like Bigfoot, leprechauns, and so on.
And he's very excited about
He's
them.
super excited. Later, he breaks into this impromptu song, which is, I can't even repeat it. As they're driving, and Flula's just, and this guy, if there was a positivity meter that went to 1 million,
he'd break it.
And that's what makes him so humorous.
Mm-hmm.
Is he misses the subtle things, and when he doesn't miss one, he just, like something's depressing. He has his whole take on it, just in a few words, and his attitude's like, this guy's awesome.
Relentless.
Yes. I mean, who wouldn't want this kind of friend? Right?
Oh, he sounds like a blast.
So anyway, David's phone rings. It's his agent, and he says he could get the part in the Lewis and Clark film. So he's excited. He's like, I had my phone with me all weekend, or all week, or whatever. Let me know.
I know, and I went,
yeah. So they get to the parking area and hit the trail. And we follow them along. They're happily hiking, very positive. David's actually kind of cheery, about getting out there because it's his jam.
Yeah.
And Flula's just up for anything. And then And this happens a lot. We hear David, his voice, in a voiceover, and he's reading an excerpt from the actual Lewis and Clark journal.
Yes, I have a note in here that said the narration makes me want to read Lewis and Clark's journals because I've never actually read them.
Really?
Yeah. Have you read them?
I mean, some for papers.
Sure.
I haven't, like, sat down, gone from one to end. But yeah, I would like to. Because these, first of all, not to get out of this too much, that was a period in time where when people wrote, because that fucking ink and pen business back then, whatever you spent all that time and effort writing, you wanted to make it worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Words were chosen so carefully. And anyone can think back to any of these journals from 1700s forward, which more modern, but the words that were chosen, everything is so eloquent. Everything is so descriptive and so immersive.
Yeah.
And they're not trying to be poetic, but it's how they chose to communicate, because that was a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Those fucking quills, you dip in the ink, you'd be lucky to get a word and a half. And then you got to, do it again. And then you don't want to fuck it up. So you got to choose carefully what you want to say.
Well, I think, yeah. I mean, he's reading the part of Clark, right?
Yeah.
William Clark. I just know that was Lewis and Clark. Maybe I saw. Well, I know Meriwether Lewis, but
yes. Yeah, it's Clark's part because he's always mentioning Meriwether.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was auditioning for Clark as well.
Yeah.
But they are poetic in a huge way. And it's really beautiful to listen to. I think maybe David Kuntiole should just put out an audiobook that is him narrating Lewis and Clark's journals.
It's funny. The dude's in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're watching him. He's talking with Flula and all this. But these voiceovers, it's not like he went down deep to do a narrating voice. But as any good actor, the way he read them was so tonally different than what we were seeing on the screen, even though he's talking in the background underneath them. I thought it was, I don't know, I really enjoyed this.
And the excerpts are chosen to sort of match the tone of their trip at the moment.
Yeah, this was thought out.
Yeah, it was.
It was well thought out, well selected excerpts to match, and almost as if it was describing what they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, they kind of tailored what they were doing a little bit. But anyway, it was wonderful. It was wonderful. So as they're going along, Flula asks if they can increase their pace. David is gasping behind him. Yeah. And it's fun. He is. Flula is just like this stormtrooper of energy.
Mm-hmm.
He's got his, his socks up and his sandals. And he's,
oh, yeah.
We're walking. I know my best friend David is behind me. Very close.
Right.
Right, David?
Yeah. And David, who started out so energetically, is very winded very quickly.
Yes, because the scenery is beautiful and everything. And then he's like, David's like, oh, these packs are so heavy. And Fula's like, no, not really.
Right.
And he keeps going, telling David to push it. And then later, we do a little fade and you can tell it's later. And Flula is just going on like a star of positivity. David is nearly dying.
Yes.
And Flula is just awesome.
Uh-huh. So, that night in the tent, David calculates that they walked 2 miles that day.
How long did we go, David? 2 miles.
Yes. 84 miles remain. So Flula says they might need to walk a little faster.
I know.
So the next day, Flula is recording the sounds of nature as they're walking. And David asks what he's doing. He says he's recording the greatest song he's ever written.
But it hasn't been written yet. And
he's recording things like the sounds of trees, Literally just like holding the microphone up to a tree.
Right. Well, that's just it. So he's not like with his phone. He actually
He's got a little
has
boom mic.
like a Tascam professional
Yeah.
portable audio. Yeah, and he's got a shotgun mic.
Yeah.
He's just taking it all in. Just killed me.
It's wonderful. He's so weird, but just in love with life.
Yes.
So while they're hiking, David is kind of thinking about his fiancee, Frankie, who we know because we saw pictures of her on their save the dates that he shredded earlier.
Right.
And we see her in these sort of like dreamlike visions.
Mm-hmm.
They stop for lunch, and David is telling Flula about Lewis and Clark because he's thinking about the audition and this trip and so on. And he says they're hiking part of the trail that Lewis and Clark hiked 200 years ago. So this is going to be great research for him for his part. And then Flula cuts their lunch break short so he could push David to hike on. They happen across a man who is also hiking in the woods, but in sort of the opposite direction. And there's this very sort of cute interchange where Flula says that they're on their honeymoon. There's a little bit of confusion about that. The guy is very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
But clearly thinks that they're together. And then he dives into his conspiracy theories. And ultimately tells him to watch out for the GMO government wolves.
Yes.
Which terrifies Flula, who is apparently very scared of wolves. And it's cute because up until this point, Flula has been so optimistic about everything. And this guy's talking about these GMO wolves. And
Yeah.
Flula is like, the look on his face is like, no.
The sun has set on Flula.
Right.
With that bit of information.
Yeah. So the conspiracy guy gives them a jar full of mushrooms as a honeymoon present after he takes a handful of them and walks off. But not before recognizing David from a show that David did as a kid called Little Genius.
Yes.
Not a real show, not real David. So
Right.
on. David is not thrilled about people only remembering him for this show that he did when he was a kid. And they don't even really remember him from this show, but apparently this robot. And so every time someone brings up this show, David gets very like, you know.
Yeah. It's very real.
Yeah.
There's a lot of actors out there who were in shows as kids. I mean, look at Kurt Russell, right?
Oh, yeah.
Kurt Russell was before they even had color for television.
Mm-hmm.
he was on it. And same with Jeff Bridges. His dad was Lloyd Bridges,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And anyway, these guys fought hard as hell to get known as an actor
Right.
as they started getting into adulthood, rather than the cute kid from the show kind of thing, you know.
Which is why it was really fun to see Haley Joel Osment on Silicon Valley.
God, yes.
I really want him to get back out there and do some big stuff because he is really good as an adult.
Well, yeah, if you remember, he was on What We Do in the Shadows.
That's right, he was. Anyway, David does have to reassure Flula that there are not wolves as the guy walks away.
So, as they're hiking down the trail, Flula asks about the movie. This is, we're not going to do it justice.
I wanted to give you this bit.
This is like you and I trying to do Who's on First.
It is. Yeah.
Right? And only Abbott and Costello can do it 100%. So anyway, he's asking David about the movie. He wants him to explain something about Superman having a slave. Now let's jump back a bit. A little bit in the conversation, David was explaining the whole Lewis and Clark thing, right? And how there's one part of the script that bugs him is they had a slave.
Right.
Right. And he came with them as a free man.
No.
Or I mean, no. he came with them.
He came with them. He saved Meriwether's life.
Yeah, multiple times.
Yes.
And he didn't want to go back with them
as a slave.
So they beat him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, David wants to have something more positive in the script. Anyway, so when he says, what's this about Superman having a slave? So he thinks Lewis and Clark are Lois and Clark, yes. i.e. Superman. Mm-hmm. So David tries to explain it, and it goes on and on. And then Flula eventually is like, whatever. I just want you to know I'm against slavery.
Yeah.
But the whole thing, the exchange is both beautiful and funny as hell.
It is, yeah.
And then we get more voiceover. David reading from the journal. So then they hike, they rest, they hike again. Flula is off and on recording different things, and just looks ridiculous. Mm-hmm. David is having a flashback of his fiance. They're in a playground practicing throwing punches for the camera.
Right.
And it's awesome because they're doing it. He's like, oh, you got that biker concerned over there. It was really good. And until ultimately she ends up actually hitting him. But he's cool about it. And then we hear Flula screaming.
Mm-hmm.
So David runs and runs and runs towards his voice. And Flula has slipped and his arm is pinned between two rocks. And he's saying he was, recording and he slipped and the rock shifted. And he tells David, pretend you're James Franco.
Yeah.
David's like, I'm not cutting any arms off. And Flula's just screaming and you can see, the blood and everything. And then all of a sudden Flula is like, oh, look at that. Then licks his arm. Catch up in the woods.
Yeah.
So he pranked him.
Mm-hmm.
He pranked David, which I thought was fucking hilarious. But just the whole bit. Pretend you're James Franco.
Yeah. He hands him a pocket knife to get his arm off with.
Yeah. He's like, if anybody's going to cut my arm off, I want it to be you.
It's a good one. It's good.
It did.
So, day 3 of the trip, David gets a message on his phone in a brief moment of reception.
Yes.
From Frankie, but he's unable to get any calls out or anything.
Right.
Meanwhile, Flula is like swimming with some ducks.
Yeah, behind him.
Yeah.
Just this background thing going, saying things here and there.
Well, he's trying to get David to come swim with him.
Yeah.
So David spends the whole morning trying to get reception while they're hiking. And he asks Flula, like, oh, why do you think Frankie might have tried to reach out to me? And Flula is sort of like just brushing it off the whole day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because Flula is very positive, but you can kind of tell Flula's like a little bit annoyed about the phone.
A little bit, because, I had in here, he just keeps pushing top speed.
Yeah.
Top speed. Let's go, David.
So they're trying to get reception at the edge of a cliff. David hands his phone to Flula because he goes, you're slightly taller than me. And Flula accidentally drops David's phone off the cliff. They retrieve it, but it's broken.
It's shattered.
Which is unfortunate because the maps they've been following are on David's phone. So is the compass. Pretty much everything.
Yeah.
And Flula's like, no, it's fine. I looked at the map. The next place we got to go is Red Fox something.
Yeah, Red Fox.
Yeah.
How many red foxes can there be in the woods?
Well, they end up at a sign that is a crossroads between Red Fox Hills or Red Fox Bridge.
Yep. Opposing directions.
Mm-hmm. Oops. They take the hills. They end up finding a ranger cabin with a package that David had sent ahead for the honeymoon. Flula also sent a package ahead with his orange shirts that says Honey Buddies.
Yeah.
In German. With a little picture of a tent and 2 stick figures where one is slightly taller than the other one.
I love that bit. It's just
Yeah.
like, because, David, this one is you. And he's like, well, because it's shorter? Yes.
It's
Because
accurate.
it is accurate.
Delightful.
Oh.
They get a night in a cabin partying with their orange shirts.
Oh, and David's package, he had mailed himself champagne
Yeah.
and a bunch of stuff for he and Frankie.
Yeah. But they're going to have it for themselves. David did manage to get in touch with his agent and learned that he is one of 2 candidates for the part
Yep, he's in the running.
of William Clark. And he also finds tucked away in his secret honeymoon box that he sent had a note from Frankie. She had found the package before he sent it and wrote a sweet little note to go in it.
Mm-hmm. Which gutted him.
It did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next day, they're near a creek that Flula is traveling down to get some river sounds.
Well, yeah. Well, they're in a creek,
Mm-hmm.
and then he starts wandering down it, but he somehow ends up in a dry riverbed or creek bed.
Right. Well, he tells David, "I'm going to go get some river sounds," because
Yeah.
David is just kind of sitting by the river doing David stuff.
Yeah.
David tells him to be careful. And then, we're alone with Flula. And he's tapping rocks together, doing his little sound recording bits. And we see behind him someone in a wolf mask.
Yeah.
It's David, because you can see the orange Honey Buddy shirt.
Yeah.
And he scares the hell out of Flula.
Well, it's funny because they do this cut.
Right.
Because Flula's busy. He's got his headphones on.
Yeah.
He's busy with sound, tapping rocks and stuff. He's so engrossed in it, and David's just standing there like,
Yeah.
Eventually he'll turn around.
Flula promises to get David back, and David's like, "No, we're even now." And Flula's like, "No, I get you, you get me, I get you." So then we have a little flashback of David talking to Frankie, and they're having an argument. He thinks she's mad that he didn't get this job. She's mad about how he treated her. Seems like their relationship has been sort of rocky for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then Flula and David end up running into a woman who recognizes them from the hiker registry, where Flula wrote in like best buddies forever, honey buddies or something.
BFF or no, it was something like I can't remember exactly what it was. Rockin' DJ or something.
Yeah.
And his BFF forever. And
Yeah. Something cute. And she invites them to stay with her group for the evening. They've got a little campsite set up already.
Mm-hmm.
And Flula is telling David, like, "Oh, that girl was interested in you." And he tells David that he's going to be his wingman. And David's like, "No, I'm good."
I don't need a wingman.
So the friends are camped around the fire, and Flula is hyping up David.
Oh my God.
In some, I'm not going to spoil it, but in some really weird.
Yeah,
weird
there's
ways.
like 5 or 6
Mm-hmm.
brilliant little things that
Yeah.
are best left for experiencing.
Yeah. So David strikes up a conversation with this woman. And she learns his story about why they're on his honeymoon together, And she says it's the saddest thing she's ever heard. It turns out that Flula has the best man speech on him that he would have given at David's wedding. And they ask him to give it. And I'm not going to say it, but it is incredible.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite part of this movie.
Yep. I didn't even make notes on it. I just wrote, so he reads it. It is priceless.
Yes.
Because I was actually so engrossed in it. I couldn't take notes anyway.
Yeah. It's very good. The woman recognizes David from TV, but it's not the show Little Genius.
Right.
And David is pretty thrilled about this.
Mm-hmm.
And then Flula brings up Little Genius.
Yeah.
And one of their friends has the guitar, one of these camp friends. And he starts playing like the intro song for Little Genius. And then David walks away pretty ticked off while the song is playing.
Yeah.
And they have this like liquor concentrate that they add to some seltzer water or something.
Yeah. So they brought this super high concentrated stuff. I don't know if this is a thing. I never heard of it. I mean, if you're going to bring booze, bring booze. not being a booze drinker, I don't know. But yeah, you're supposed to take it like a
like a
very
shot in a water
small
bottle
amount.
sort of
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
And he just starts drinking that
I know,
concentrate.
he starts downing it. Oh my God. I just want to go back to that song that the guitar guy
Okay.
was playing. It was terrible.
This can't be. It was so cheesy.
I mean, but it fits that kind of stupid sitcom kind of show, right? And I thought, if for no other reason than the whole experience of being only recognized as this fucking kid actor, 20 years after you've done it and you're trying to make a living, having to hear that song would be enough to piss me off too.
Yeah.
If I had to listen to that shit over and over and over. So anyway, as he comes back, Flula he sees talking with the woman, and the next morning he wakes up, he looks over, he picks up a condom, a used condom.
Right.
Flula's not in the tent, and then there's a note, and the note is to Flula from the woman. Calling him a master of making love and all this stuff. And then it ends with, I'm glad I chose you over David. And I almost jumped out of my fucking chair. Like, oh my God, what a fucking brutal thing to say.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And then all of a sudden, P.S., it's Flula saying that he's writing it and David's been punked.
Yes.
And that tracks. Jesus Christ. So David goes out to find him, and they have an argument. Flula says he's trying to help David feel better, but he's basically been a little whining bitch.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? In the argument, David, so in the best man's speech, there's a description of how they met.
Right.
Right. David tells Flula he doesn't remember meeting him, that he was, super drunk. And he's like, and that's where our friendship began. I don't even remember it starting. And then Flula, just very deadpan, just says he's going to the next camping site without David. And he leaves. Right?
Yeah.
So, and this was just funny. So there's shots of Flula walking. And folks, I just want to say, these are like no bullshit trails. Right. This isn't like, so we live in Wisconsin, and we have, like Devil's Lake, park and stuff. There's a trail that goes up the cliffs, but, and there's some that through the woods, but they're nothing like this. These are like full on mountain hiking trails.
Yeah. I mean, the Devil's Lake trails here are moderate hiking trails.
And those are the ones that go up the cliff rather than out and around and come up the shallow to be at the top. Yeah. But yeah, if you're going to hike these trails, you need to be in shape, so again, it's beautiful. It's wonderful to look at.
It is.
See all this forest and everything. So anyway, we have Flula walking along, and like every 5 seconds, he's looking behind him.
Yeah.
He's looking behind him. And if he thinks and then he starts running, not running, but walking real fast.
Like power walking.
Yeah. And then we see David come around a bend far behind him.
Right.
And
so Flula is literally saying just out of sight.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. Oh, he doesn't want to be too far, but
he doesn't want to actually leave David behind.
Right. It's just, I love this fucking guy.
It's very cute.
So, and David's slowly walking. He's looking glum. You can just see all over his face all the shit that he wanted to forget and everything. And then we kind of head to later. They're both at the next camping site. They're sitting on chairs by their tent, just quietly. Sun starting its sunset arc. It's got that orangey light, that golden light of the day. And then we hear Ren Fair music.
Yes.
And musicians come out of the woods playing instruments, and they're dressed as Ren Fair
It's a
people.
full-on minstrel band.
It is. And then Dave was like, oh, I can't believe I forgot to cancel them. And Flula is like, they're like Vikings, but friendly. So they are called the Organ Renaissance Band. And the leader says that they are happy to be playing for them on their special occasion. Because he's like, you're David? And he's like, yeah. And he looks at Flula, you're Frankie? And Flula's like, eh. Doesn't say no. He's just like, eh. So we kind of cut away as music is going to be played for them for a little while. They're going to be serenaded.
A little note, David becomes pretty emotional while listening to this music.
He does. Yeah. It is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've ever listened to Ren Fair music, and I don't mean just the same three things that they play, you know, all that stuff. I mean, that music it's emotive, you know, even if you're there eating on a chicken leg and stuff, but it takes you, the reason they do it so much at the fair is because it really does take you out of your head of the modern world,
mm-hmm.
right? And just kind of like open up to things. Unfortunately, David, when he opens up, he's got this just like dam full of shit misery, you know, because these flashbacks that we've had and everything, this Flula just wants to get him to get his mind off of being miserable.
Right.
You know, but David is, all the stuff's coming back in. All that happy camping, hiking stuff has just been, you know, because this was a big deal. This was like the super reminder.
Yeah.
Why he should have been here, or who he should have been here with.
Right.
Let me say. Do you have a different thought?
No, I mean, I think it's also possible this band maybe meant something personal to them. You know what I mean?
I mean, I kind of got that too. Yeah, it's this whole circle of things. Because this wasn't just like a whimsy, jokey kind of honeymoon. It seems like a lot of thought was put into this. And like I said, in the beginning, other than him being wildly out of shape and nearly dying the first day.
Well, he does mention that first day that maybe that morning bottle of wine wasn't a great idea.
Right. But it seemed like this was something they both enjoyed.
Right.
It was very much a part of who they were together, something that they both shared.
Right.
You know, so I did get the sense that it was like coming up. So we go to the next day. David is up looking for water. He goes to Flula and apologizes to him for being a dick.
Yes. And offers the mushrooms that conspiracy guy gave them.
That they've forgotten about.
That they forgot all about, that were in David's bag. And Flula immediately just like eats probably half of them, which is a lot.
Yes.
And David's like, whoa, that's a lot.
Yeah, you gotta be, he's trying to do the whole, you gotta be in the right kind of mindset. So maybe we should take it slow kind of thing. Like, whoa, that's way too many.
And Flula's just like, let's fucking go.
Let's do this.
Yeah. And then we get a fun, trippy montage.
Yes.
That's a delight. And then they come across a real wolf while they're tripping, a white wolf. And it is talking to them via subtitles.
Yeah.
Inviting them to dinner. And when they reach toward it, it snarls and they run. And run and run and run and run. And then later, they're resting against a tree, and Flula is extremely concerned about the wolf.
Yes.
And David says he thinks he knows why Frankie left him. And that if they make it out of the woods, he's going to change his priorities. And it seems like this is kind of the coming down of their high, where they're just... There's some truths.
Yeah, the mind trip has
reset. Yeah.
Well, it has resulted in something.
Mm-hmm.
He's had his epiphany.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flula admits that he dropped David's phone on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which I think we all kind of knew.
Yeah, it was that sort of suspicion, but this was a tone changer.
Oh, yeah. So day 7, David wakes up to find Flula keeping watch for the wolf with one of those like multi-tool knives at the ready.
Yes.
And we haven't mentioned it yet, but they have these sleeping bags
Yes.
that are wearable.
Wearable sleeping bags.
Mm-hmm. Like their arms can come out, you can zip it up. They're pretty smart.
They're smart, but they look absolutely ridiculous.
They look ludicrous. So Flula's like crouching in this body, full wearable sleeping bag, like just about ready to pass out, right? He's swaying. He's got the little knife in his hand. And he's like, the wolf didn't try to eat us.
It's like, good news, David. The wolf didn't get us.
Yeah.
Suck it, wolf.
Yeah. So they set out to find this lodge that has been promised where they'll get to stay. This is like the culmination of the trip. Toward the end, they're going to get to stay in this like all services provided lodge sort of situation.
Right.
Both of them are very excited about it because it's been a hard trip. And they get there, and the lodge guy says that David's agent has been calling a lot. Something about Lewis and Clark. Hands him an envelope with a message. And Flula sees Frankie on the patio of the lodge and is trying to distract David.
Yes.
He's like, you know what, David? We don't need to go to the lodge. Let's keep going.
Look, David, a tree.
Yeah. And David turns around and sees Frankie.
Mm-hmm.
She texted David to let him know that she would be at the lodge. That was why she sent the message. But he didn't get any further messages. They do this sort of little chit chat between them. Kind of like, I get it. Things are ended, but it's not hostile.
Right. It was just a moment of understanding.
Right. It was very mature.
Yeah. It wasn't, rah, 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 and blah, playing this and that. It was just, it made sense too. I mean.
And it was a little awkward.
Well, why wouldn't it be?
But it wasn't, yeah.
I do want to say, though, the funniest fucking part about this whole thing is it only took her 20 minutes to drive.
Yeah, I have that. And they're sitting there watching Flula doing his recording like he's their child or something. And David learns that the lodge is a 20-minute drive from where they started.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, should have drove. She asks him about the envelope with the message, and he says, yeah, I'm not going to open this right now. I'm focused on what's in front of me. And Flula, watching them talk, basically quietly wishes them luck and walks away.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, Flula, don't go.
Mm-hmm.
David runs after him, tells him it was a great trip. And then they go to part ways. And then David goes, you really think I would have finished this trip without you?
Yeah.
His last little prank. And then they walk on. And Flula says that he's going to call his song Honey Buddies Forever, Superman Never.
Yeah, as we pull out, they're starting to talk Superman, and then it fades out and stuff. But the line that he said right after that is, Flula's like, what about, Frankie? And he's like, the Frankie stuff will work itself out.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was probably one of the, I can't think of any other way that could have been written to make it better.
Yeah, it was excellent.
I thought that was wonderful. And that's the film. Should we talk about some stuff about it?
Let's do it. So, one of my favorite things about this movie is that it feels like a real buddy movie, and not in the way that it is a buddy movie, right? It's a buddy comedy.
Yeah.
But in the way that David and Flula are best friends in real life.
Right.
And Alex is also one of their good friends. And this is a movie that the three of them just desperately, they wanted to make something together, and they did.
Yeah.
And so it is, in that sense, a movie made, by buddies.
Yes.
And you could feel that, just the like pure joy that this film has
Right.
comes through in spades. And you can feel that, like, this was really fun to make. They made it very quickly, and they made it just having fun together.
I mean, it is clear,
Yeah.
Now, I know that making it wasn't 100% fun because
Well, right.
no movie ever is, I would put this up with Space Trucker Bruce.
Sure.
I think they're tied because when we did Space Trucker Bruce, we were talking to Anton, and I told him I loved planes, trains, and automobiles for like my whole life, ever since I first saw it. It was just like the ultimate, John Candy, Steve Martin. What did not get put into that movie with those two? But Space Trucker Bruce, I don't know. It beat it. It beat it. And this is equal to. They're slightly different because we have two best friends going in from the start, where Space Trucker Bruce was this, kind of odd.
They become best friends.
Yeah, happenstance pairing, but it is just so good. I think it goes to. Well, let's talk about the dynamics of this film first. So
Okay.
let's build the platform.
Yeah.
There was virtually no script.
Right. It was. They had an idea of where they wanted it to go, and they improv'd.
Yes. Now that reminded me of Ryan Kruger with Fried Berry.
Yes.
3 notebook pages of just notes, and that's all they went with.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And look at the fucking monster movie that came out of that. The thing was awesome.
Well,
Right?
and then David Ryan Keith writes movies with the idea that he's going to be filming them in mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So, I mean, now I don't want this to be a lesson for folks who are just starting out. Just don't have a script. Don't do anything. Just get out there and do something. This is something that only succeeds if you have the chops for it.
If you
You know what I
already
mean?
know what you're doing.
Yeah. Or even if you moderately know what you're doing, there's a talent, a level of talent that very few people have. We don't. I could never improv something, right? I could never come up with an idea and say direct it because I'm certainly not going to act, right?
Sure.
And just tell folks, okay, go do your thing. I wouldn't be able to direct them appropriately to let them do their thing, right? It would just fall flat. So this is something that is, I think, a gift that a few people have. But it does go to show if you want to give it a shot, give it a shot. But this is, and we talk B movies, is what we're supposed to be mostly about. You couldn't do this with a B movie. Studio will never fucking give you money to wing it, right? Like Bubba Hotep. I'm sure there was quite a bit of improv and on-set changes to the script, because Bruce Campbell's very particular about this doesn't make sense.
Oh, yeah.
Or this would be better, right? And then just the whole cast in there was really, really good. And you have to have a director who can work with that, but you have to stay within a certain parameter because it's studio money. It's their bag. Indie film takes that all away. But sometimes that kind of freedom could crush you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, here's the thing. It's an indie film. You can do whatever the hell you want. You can take that chance. You can go for it, right? Wherever you are in it. If you wrote, directing, and you're acting in it, power to you, But it's that kind of freedom where the most beautiful gems have arisen in all of filmmaking is just that whole thing. Like last episode, we talked about Eraserhead.
Right.
Right? Not an action movie. It's a thinker. It's brilliant in its own ways. And that's the thing about indie film is these things come out they're not necessarily going to compete with the studio stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, but there's just something organic that comes to life, and every now and again, that magic combination, kablam! You know, uh, really, I mean, it's up to whoever's listening. Do it or don't, but just understand that the power of creation doesn't have to be regimented. I would say have a script, you know, um, and you can always change it. You can let your actors do their thing, or however you want to do it. But all that just to set the tone of what kind of movie this was. Shot in 10 days, out of pocket, which reminds me of Meteorite Man, or Meteor Man, not Meteorite Man. I was Meteorite
I know.
Man with Jeff, but Meteor Man, another movie, kind of ridiculous indie film, and paid for with credit cards,
Right.
like bankrupt level kind of
Yes.
stuff. Robert Townsend took the chance, made this ridiculous movie, campy as all shit, fun to watch, did well.
Yeah. Well, let's get technical.
Yeah, let's get technical on I want to talk about the buddy aspect, the the vibe. Let's just call it that.
Sure.
Because we're just talking about that. So to sum that part up, making a film of any kind is a major pain in the ass. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of shit to, unless you're going to run around with a camera on your shoulder and just do found footage type stuff. It's very hard, but you made it. Your point was, I think, straight on. It seemed like they were having fun.
Oh, yeah.
Not just that this is something they wanted to do, but even with the filmmaking hassles, it just showed through that this was, passion. Just, we want to do this, and it's going to get done.
Well, yeah. And they also played it smart. So I wanted to talk about cinematography.
Yes.
Because while it is done well, it isn't, it's not breaking any barriers.
No.
It's 99% shot outdoors,
Mm-hmm.
which comes with its own set of challenges.
I would be mortified with a 90% outdoor movie.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, you have everything working against you.
Yeah. And I mean, not every shot was done phenomenally artistically, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them were pretty basic, but solid shots. But you could tell that they leaned heavily on sort of the natural beauty of the forest around them to shore up any sort of like, well, we're not taking any big risks with this shot. We're pretty much just pointing the camera at somebody in the woods.
Right.
But leaning into that natural beauty. And I did read that this was a 2-camera film. Pretty much every take was done with 2 cameras, sort of a dueling singles sort of situation.
Yeah.
Which cuts your time filming in half.
Yes. You don't have to reset. Back to 1.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that there were a lot of very smart moves done in the cinematography. Basically keeping it lean, keeping it smart, keeping it simple, keeping it good.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And not trying too hard to make it like artistic.
Right.
Because that's not the vibe of this movie.
No, and not everything has to be artistic.
I know.
To come across.
But that's what I see in so many indie films. It's like that attempt to be like, well, we're going to be very artistic about the shots that we take in this film.
Yes.
And then it just really takes away from it.
It does.
When what you want to do in indie film is you want to just make a movie.
Yeah, that's the whole story. I've got 2 things on that.
Okay.
And I just now I forgot the first one. No. So yes, so we're recording this now. Yesterday, I posted
Mhm.
the broadcast signal intrusion, right? And today gave it a listen just to make sure post posting something didn't freak out like it did that one episode years ago. And we were talking about camera work, particularly like that conversation in the hallway thing.
Right.
Okay, so a lot of indie folks can't afford 2 cameras,
True.
right? Now these guys, we'll get to that. But there were things that could have been done to make visually make what little story there was watchable, right? Because
Yes.
I'm thinking of the little rant I went on. Never have the fucking star of the movie with his back to the camera for like a 5-minute conversation, and never, without cutting to his face for a reaction, right? We're bonding with this character. Fuck everybody else. Every movie, even Marvel, there's only one guy. It's Iron Man, right?
Oh, right.
And Thor and Hulk, they're all fucking great, but it was and always will be Iron Man. Not even Captain America can compare, right? When something's going on and he's not wearing his helmet, we want to see Tony Stark's reaction. We want to see what the fuck is going on. I want to be brought into his world.
Yeah.
I want to understand how people are feeling and reacting to one another with whatever's going on. And not doing that just robs the audience. This, like you said, didn't break any. Nobody's getting any awards for cinematography.
Right.
As far as like artsy and creative, and they didn't break any barriers. But man, they held on to that standard rail with like a death grip. It was like nearly flawless.
Well, and it feels very classic. It feels very clean. I mean, this movie at this point is 8 years old. We're a little behind the train on it, right? Because it's a 2016 movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of just sort of simple classic timelessness of the cinematography, it could have been made this year.
Well, let's talk about the hiking.
Yeah.
Right. So we see Flula, and he runs off camera, and then we see David come around the corner. Now, in somewhat more poorly shot situations, that's all we would have. And we'd have to wait for David to lumber towards the camera to get close enough to see what's going on with him. Is he smiling? Is he grimacing? What's going on? This dual camera thing does save time.
Yeah.
But it also gives you that, because there's a lot of cuts. A lot of cut to David, cut to Flula, cut to this, cut to that. There's a lot of breakaway shots.
It really is.
Which made this feel so less monotonous. We're not watching them hike in real time.
Right.
Right. And breakaway shots aren't just, you can't just like point the camera away from what's going on, take 5 seconds and then come back. That's not a breakaway shot. A breakaway shot has to, we've said it before, every second of that screen needs to be telling a fucking story and moving a direction. So a breakaway shot, when done properly, takes us away from what's going on for a second between the characters, but whatever we're looking at has something to do with what's going on. So yes, we're in a forest.
Right.
Choosing, and it's not just like they just showed trees.
No.
They captured some beautiful light through the canopy.
Waterfalls.
Some waterfalls. The sunsets were magnificent.
Cliffs and bluffs.
Yeah. And I really felt there with them. And that's the hallmark of a good buddy film. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I had been on the road. I had lived that life. I knew exactly the bullshit they were going through. So I felt like, I'm with you, bro.
Sure.
I'm with you, homie. Space Trucker Bruce, Anton did the same thing they did here. You just felt you were on that ship. You felt the weirdness between the two at first.
Yeah.
And everything going on. I like to be involved in the movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, if I wanted to just like stare at something, I'd watch, fucking Looney Tunes all day long. So that was done very well. And where broadcast signal intrusion failed is incorporating any of that.
Yeah.
They didn't do it. Now, the second thing, oddly enough, earlier today, I saw a reel about a cinematographer talking about, and I disagree with him on this point. I just want to say that up front. And they were showing some of his work. He's good. He's
Yeah.
good. But he was saying, like, cinematography isn't about getting that image or getting that thing. It's telling the story as best as you can. And I get that. But he made a comment. He said, if somebody is watching a movie that I worked on and they're like, that was shot really well. I loved that lighting. That scene was a great thing. He's like, if you stop and do that during the film, he's like, then I didn't do my job because I took you out of I didn't keep you in the movie. And I disagree with that. I
mean, I like to notice things like that.
I do too. And I can't think of a single movie I've ever watched where there's an element that I just, I appreciate everything that's going on. We were talking about like again, broadcast signal intrusion, the apartment. People go to such labors designing sets. And I'm not talking Easter eggs because I'm so over that fucking shit. God, whatever, man. I'm more interested in you designing this thing so I can get a clear shot over this guy's shoulder of the 4 books he's got on a shelf above his desk, and I catch a title. That will tell me more about this character than all this other stuff going on. It connects me.
Mm-hmm.
I like to appreciate those attentions to detail. Good cinematography, local hero, right? The whole thing with the motorbike. Nearly runs him down straight in the beginning when he gets to town. By the end, the guy's like 300 yards away in the background. If you don't catch that right, it doesn't click.
Right.
Right. And I mean, obviously the director wanted to portray that, but bad cinematography will take that away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So I get where this guy was going, but cinematography is so important. It should be like just relished in the moment, and you should notice everything. Note everything about a movie. The little eye movement, like Jenna Coleman.
Oh, and her micro expressions.
Her micro expressions. We talk about those endlessly every time we see her in something.
She's amazing.
She has that shit down pat.
Yeah.
And to think that I'm not going to notice that, I think that's robbing the artist, be it an actor, set designer, cinematographer, director, whatever. I think it's robbing them of recognition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so into this. I see everything. I think that is the biggest compliment.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was visually, wow.
Very good.
Yes.
The acting, amazing. David is a very good actor.
Yes.
Flula is a fascinating actor.
Flula is a force.
Yeah.
And watching him, I just felt like, it's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing. I just felt like at any moment, like with any force, this could go in any direction.
Well,
you just don't know with this guy. But
there's
awesome.
an interview that I read, because I read a couple of articles about this movie, in preparation for talking about it, because after we watched it, I was like, I got to know more about what's the story behind this. And maybe we should do that for movies we don't like as well, but it's hard to get motivated to do that when you feel like, oh God, I just want to be done with it. But David described, so they say they're playing sort of like, zhuzhed up versions of themselves.
Right.
But David says Flula in this movie basically plays a human version of a German exclamation point.
Yes. Yes.
And
I like
that is true.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the whole making of this thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
The no script and stuff. This clearly, these guys have experience, clearly know about filmmaking, and clearly had the contacts, right, to people who knew how to do like sound and the mixing and all the post stuff.
Right.
Which
Well,
shows
they called on their tribe and their friends.
exactly. And I think that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what indie film is if you know somebody who can do something, right? Like Kyle's reaching out to his people, you know, David learned how to do stuff, but now he has, you know, he can outsource it because he's getting enough budget to do that where he doesn't have to labor.
Well,
You know?
yeah. I mean, it's one of the beautiful things about independent film. So, I mean, they fully did this all by themselves,
Mhm.
you know, which gives it that much more, I don't know, like gravitas of independence in independent film.
Yeah.
Because they could do whatever they wanted because they're the ones paying for it, you know, as opposed to, say, a crowdfunded film. Even if it's crowdfunded from someone who is well known, and there have been crowdfunded films.
Yeah.
Right? When you crowdfund, you have a sort of responsibility to the people who gave you money for the film. And there is a little bit more of that pressure.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then we're not even talking studios, right?
Right.
It's not independent film.
Yeah, that's a whole separate kind of pressure.
But then you have like investors and stuff. And the thing about independent film is everyone knows that the likelihood of making any money on an independent film is slim to none.
Right.
Right?
Well, I think the funny thing, the difference to me between this and Hollywood, you have these top investors and they want top returns, right? In independent film, the goal isn't really actually to make money. Honestly, it's to lose.
To make a film.
It's to lose as little money as possible.
Correct. Yes.
Right. Because David,
if you make your money back, that's good.
Look at Attack of the Herbals.
Right.
Right. Vastly different than his later works.
Oh,
because that was, you know, like get volunteers to do the parts, and everyone involved is going to do multiple parts. Like Liam, he's in the movie, but he's
6
also
different times.
Yeah, he's also doing a bunch of shit. He's doing the setup and all the. I mean, just wild.
And you see him in that one character, the funny Scottish guy, but he is also, you know, doing 6 to 8 different roles behind the camera.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing with indie film. The sad fact of the matter is you need to have some money.
Yeah.
We're not talking $10,000, $100,000, which in Hollywood is like, you know, I vacuum that out of my couch each week kind of thing. But you do need money because you need to at least have money to get a decent smartphone, right? If that's how you're going to go, that's what you can get.
Right.
You know, they aren't fucking cheap. You gotta feed people, man. Even if it's just ordering pizzas, whatever rundown piece of shit pizza joint you got, get something from them and feed your folks. That's $20 here, $20 there. Money is absolutely essential. And look at Kyle. He's doing it all on its own, but he's, you know, asking people, we gotta, you know, a lot of shit happened. And they have to redo a bunch of stuff post-wise and that. He's asking for money, but that's what indie film is. And yes, you do have a responsibility to these folks. They are investors, even if they're, you know, through Patreon, Indiegogo, Kickstarter, whatever. You got to have something with them in mind, right?
Right.
I'm going to do the best I can because these people believed in me enough to send me, even if it's $5, right? You got 1,000 people sending you $5, you got a $5,000 budget. Right. But you got 1,000 people that are like, I want to see something.
Yep.
You know, and, I mean, that's the deal.
It is.
And this is the kind of thing where we're not going to get into the whole money making because that's a whole different podcast, really.
Right.
You know, it's very complicated. But this is a perfect, watch this movie, folks, watch it. And, you know, again, whatever level you're on, see how well, like the sound, the coloring, the framing, you know, the cinematography, the direction.
The sound, the music, the soundtrack to this movie is amazing.
Yes. And that was another thing.
It's so fun.
In contrast to the last episode, I didn't want to take like a pencil compass and jam it in my ears.
Right.
You know, it was appropriate. It was fun. It enhanced but didn't distract.
Mm-hmm.
It played along the silence, and it matched the beauty of the forest they were hiking through.
Mm-hmm.
So those breakaway shots paired with that music, visually, auditory, and then bookended by the story in each instance, was damn near perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it all kind of came together into this really nice recipe of what a buddy movie should be,
Mm-hmm.
what a comedy buddy movie should be in the early aughts and early 2010s. We had a lot of buddy movies that were, looking back, pretty gross, actually.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to name names.
I don't want to name names. And they're all studio films.
They were all studio films. They were tentpole comedies.
Yeah.
And
most of them I haven't seen.
A lot of them are just super toxic, masculine garbage.
Yes, I never want to see them, but then, it's on. I'm sitting here, the remote's over there. I'm chilling. I'll just let it play. And, worst decision I ever made.
Yeah.
In those couple instances. But yeah, that kind of stuff I don't like, because I think that's what made this fun. There's nothing that was puerile.
Right. That's the problem with all this. They're puerile.
Yeah. This was literally built around two guys and a friendship. Mm-hmm. Not like this wild, weird shit.
Right.
Not a caricature. Things were amped up a little bit because it's a fucking comedy.
And it's a film.
Yeah. If you could, a comedy's not going to be successful if it's
a slice of life hiking movie.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I can make you laugh.
Yeah.
I can make Lily laugh.
I can make you laugh.
Yeah. But I consider that one of the greatest gifts that I have is that pretty much almost no matter what is going on, I can get a chuckle. Mm-hmm. I can get a chuckle out of her in between sobs.
Oh, yeah.
That is a fucking miracle to me. I could never go on amateur night for stand-up. I am not a comedian. I'm not that kind of guy. I don't do that kind of humor. I just, it's a completely separate thing.
Yeah.
This is amped up a little bit for the humor, but not wildly.
I mean, not to the point where it pulls you out.
No,
right?
It feels very personal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I understand this kind of humor. This is how I kid around with my friends. Like,
yeah.
I get this. Yeah, that's funny. That's funny. So much good about this. I mean, what else is there? Direction. Clearly, the post crew knew what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
Even with a lot of improvisation, this thing is like mad well paced.
Oh, yeah. It's timing.
It's not because Flula's running around. Let's go, David.
Yeah.
We need to move faster. But even that, it's not consistent or not consistent. It's not oversaturated with him doing the one joke, like a lot of these things we were talking about, these movies.
Right.
Where it's just one big dick joke.
Pretty much.
Over and over and over and over and over. And this is good. Buddymoon is something you need to see. If nothing else, to just brighten your day.
Mm-hmm.
To end a day on a nice note and, see something that has, the appropriate levels of sweetness, realism.
Oh, yeah.
They don't go like super overboard with there's a point where they have, the argument, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they don't go like wildly hateful.
Well,
but David is a dick.
Oh, yeah.
And they do it, I think, at the perfect level to where it's very realistic. And this is how friends do. You get into an argument, you can go 3-4 days without talking.
Yeah.
And then finally you come together. I'm sorry, I was, blah, 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 blah. And it's very realistic. Mm-hmm. And I like that because I just kept everything in the right tone.
Yeah.
Tonally, this movie just is a feel-good movie.
It is. And it also, I mean, it follows the buddy comedy formula basically to a T, right?
Yeah.
And it does it in a way that's just very comforting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're watching it and you're like, I know what's going to happen. Not exactly what's going to happen.
Right.
Right. But I know the ups and downs of this roller coaster enough that I can, oh, here's the climax of the big argument. They're going to, and it's just really good. It's really good.
It is. I'm going to use that roller coaster analogy.
Okay.
So this is a perfect example. And this is where indie people especially go fucking way off the rails, right? Being an artist isn't making up your own shit all the time. It isn't turning your back on all the stuff that has been and is. And that is, I think, where a lot of the things that we haven't liked, they've tried it. And there are elements to storytelling that will never change, no matter how many billions of years we live, right? It has been millennia after millennia. How we tell stories has been the same. There's no new way to do it.
Yeah.
But how you do it in that construct. So this is a buddy film. The roller coaster, right?
Yeah.
I love roller coasters. I'm a roller coaster fanatic. There's only a few kind of roller coasters.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So I'm going to talk about the wooden ones because I like those the best. So here's a roller coaster. You go up, you go do, and then you go down. And then there's hills, curves, turns, maybe a loop. Right?
Maybe. Not typically on the wooden ones.
Not anymore. They used to be.
Yeah.
They used to be, but they didn't always work real well. So yes, the metal ones with the loops and the real wild shit. And even those, fine, whatever.
I like the whirligig ones where it's kind of like
the corkscrew.
Yeah.
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 So just because I've been on a roller coaster doesn't mean I'm not going to go in anymore.
Right.
They're all built the same. None of them are super special, spectacular. But here's the thing. They follow that pattern. The hill's just high enough. The dive is just deep enough, fast enough, right? Not too much, not too little. If you stay within those parameters of the template, there's a lot of extra little things you can do. The corkscrew.
Yeah.
Right? Or, no, the barrel. I'm sorry. Corkscrew is when you just go like that.
Oh, yeah.
The barrel where they just go circle, 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 and it's really tight. You can follow the templates. That's fucking why they're there.
It is, yeah.
Right? It's a buddy film. You know how it goes. Bing, bang, boom. Here's your 4 points. Do them well. First of all, you got to write well to get those points in. But if you put that all together and you do those points and you do them well enough, it still seems unique yet familiar. Right?
Yeah. I mean, an example in this movie is the mushrooms.
Yes.
By the time we come back around to the mushrooms, I actually totally forgot that they had them. And they're in the trailer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they show David looking, he's, drinks the last of his water. He's looking through his bag. He gets that look on his face. And then we cut away. And I was like, oh, what did he find? And then he's offering the mushrooms to Flula. And I'm like, oh, right. Of course.
Yeah.
But it didn't click immediately for me because it was done, well. Right?
I want to use this again too. This is perfect. How many?
We're on the same page today.
We're always on the same page.
Yeah.
Just sometimes, we don't.
We're not on the same part of the page.
Yeah, maybe. So how many movies have we seen with mushroom scenes?
Oh, tons. We watched a horror movie all about mushrooms the other day.
Yeah, we did. So, there are some that are good and some that are bad. The mushroom scene is the same in all of them.
It is, yeah.
Because the mushroom scene is the mushroom scene. You're doing hallucinogens, it's always the same. The only difference is being going way to the right because of horror and way to the left for comedy.
Yeah.
Right? Now, with that, the things that they chose to do and show in that mushroom montage in this movie, none of it was so far out that it took you away from the film. It was very much David and Flula.
It was mostly them just really enjoying nature.
Well, yeah, but like the little,
But
you know,
yeah,
the little dance thing and stuff. They put a lot of that stuff in, and it's like this is so far from these characters. I mean, and that's not how hallucinogens work. You
right,
don't become a completely different human being,
right.
right? You might let loose a little bit more. People might see a side of you they don't see. But all of this, I was looking, and you know, I always get nervous when they put mushrooms in their mouths in movies because the same thing. Like, is this
Yeah.
going to make or break my experience?
It's yeah.
And this was done. This was David and Flula. You, that's what you're getting. The
Mhm.
whole thing. It's like, oh, it's David and Flula on mushrooms. Not wild, not understated, like the whole, like in Young Guns,
Mhm.
right? When they did the peyote, you know,
Oh, sure.
they're all so slow and just, you know, and it's like none of these are these people.
Right.
I've taken peyote. So, wrong. It was just wrong. This was well done. It's the little things. Again, if you follow the template to the T and do your job, directing, acting, writing, you can make this brilliant, beautiful thing that stands out above all the other ones.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, this, and, you know, we have no stake in this game. Doesn't do me any fucking credit to say this is one of my favorite buddy. This and Space Trucker Brews they're tied as the top one buddy movies in all of buddy movies in Hollywood or film history. I love them that much. This was such a wonderful experience, and it
Yeah.
reminded me of Space Trucker Bruce, which was a wild surprise, right?
Yeah.
Well, because we saw it, and we were like, okay, well, we know what we're getting into, and all of a sudden we're like, Jesus Christ, this was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
This is delightful.
Why is this hidden in the dark corner of the server room on Amazon?
I know.
This thing should be playing fucking theaters.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to learn from this. And I think we've just hit like the high points of, you know, visually, take a look. That's what you're going for. Story wise, performance wise, don't worry about the fucking template. Just apply your bits to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And bam, it'll be good.
I mean, here's the unfortunate thing. If you are making an independent film and you want to try breaking the mold, and there's nothing inherently wrong with breaking the mold.
No.
However, if you're especially an independent film, because the studio can go back and remake a whole fucking movie if they want to.
As they have been for the last 10 years.
As they have done several times. Famously and poorly.
Yes.
But if you want to break the mold with your independent film, you better be damn sure that it's going to work, because when you're done and you go, oh, I guess that didn't work out the way I thought it would, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah. Avant-garde art is like a micro niche.
Yeah.
And investors aren't interested in a micro niche because you know what that means?
Less people to watch it.
Yep. Those 150 people are going to see this film, and then it's going to be the fucking end of it. Mm-hmm. I will never get my money back. I'll never fund you again.
Yeah.
That is, you don't want that. You don't ever want that.
You don't.
You know, but let's, you know, fried berry real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Wildly outside of the templates.
Very much breaking a mold.
Breaking a mold. However, the tenets of storytelling are still intact. I can pick out every point of that movie. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Bam. How you got there might be a wild ass fucking ride that you never had before.
Well, and
there we go.
Ryan Kruger believed wholeheartedly the whole time that it was going to work.
Yeah.
Because he needed to believe that in order to make it work, and it did.
Yeah. I guess why don't we close with that?
Yeah.
Have faith in yourself.
Sure. That's a good lesson.
Have faith. Believe that what you're doing is going to work. I mean, you have to, because if you don't, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Right. It may not meet your expectations. We've talked about this, right? You got this much money, this many resources, and you're going for something like on the level of fucking Brazil, right? Well, you're not Terry Gilliam, so you don't have all that. You're not going to reach it. Do your version, right? do your Brazil.
Yeah.
And believe in it. And, you know, I guess too, because this is such a wild community, right?
Yes.
Believe in each other.
Yeah.
You know, we believe in David. We believe in, you know, Cliff and Marty and Eric, Alex, anybody we've talked to, we believe in them. All of our friends, Kyle, you know,
David Axe and the Beowulf team.
Yeah.
South Carolina.
All of them. We believe in them, and we look forward to seeing more of them. Unfortunately, with indie film, like with poor Anton,
And we believe in Anton.
we believe in Anton. Like,
I cannot wait to see his next movie.
I know, it's just been so many years.
Oh, he's working on it.
Oh, I know. I see all the stuff, and Max. You know, I love Max's updates too when they're together.
I don't get Max's updates.
Really? Oh well, yeah. You just look up Max.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got his own thing going, but you know, seeing him and Anton, you know, father and son together is pretty cool. Because I always think of this was the 10-year-old kid who had a spaceship bedroom and voiced Mr. Sour Cream. I'm gonna die. But anyway, believe in yourself. Believe in other people, and if you know people who are having a hard time doing it, help them out.
Yeah,
help them out. You know, otherwise, what's the point?
Sometimes someone needs someone else to help them believe in themselves.
Yep. Well,
with
that,
check out our Patreon.
Yeah. That's it. Just check it out.
That's it.
Don't subscribe or anything. Yeah, go to our website, lordsofmisruleproductions.com. All the links to all the stuff are there. If you go to Patreon, it's because we have 2 Patreon links on the website, again, for the podcast, for the production company. We go to patreon.com/Bravo for the B-side or /Lords of Misrule Productions, whichever one you want.
Yeah.
You know, help us out. We want to keep this thing going.
But out on the Bravo for the B-side Patreon, what you get is you get episodes a week early. And more stuff to come in the future. I believe we're going to be doing some interviews in the near future. At the very least, starting in the beginning of the year.
Right.
Doing some interviews.
Yeah, doing this bi-weekly halves our obviously episode, also our episode output. So, yeah, we don't want to get top heavy with interviews. You want to mix them in appropriately at the right times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we will have extra interview content for members only.
Patrons, yeah.
All right. Paid members, I don't think it's fair to, I mean, why do it if everyone gets it, right?
Right.
Because as we mentioned before, sometimes our interviews have gone long, especially with David Ryan Keith and Liam Matheson, famously 3 hours and 25 minutes. And we only did like 2 hours.
We could chat with Liam all day.
I know. It's, see, he's another one. All these people are just so lovely.
Yeah.
I'm just so happy to know them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we'll cut some stuff out and give after the camera's done rolling, as it were, you know.
When we only cut out stuff that we're asked not to share publicly.
Well, with approval, yeah. They get final cut, as it were.
Yeah.
As yay or nay. As we get more people, then we can do more things. You know, right now it's like we have a poll, you know, to send out a poll. Well, if you only got 2 people, I want to send a poll out on what would you like to see next, or what are your top movies, or what are 3 things that you would like to see us cover or talk about.
There are things that we can do with more patrons, and so we need more patrons. So go to the Patreon and become a patron. Yeah,
keep this thing going and help us keep helping people. Listening to the podcast, learning and gleaning some stuff from this, which is always nice to hear that it works. And
attention to some of these indie films.
And yes, bringing attention to these films, whether or not we like them, folks. If we say, I mean, there are movies I like, movies I don't like. It doesn't really matter if it's in context of the show or not. It's just the kind of film I don't like these buddy films we were talking about from the aughts and teens. Could do without all those. Not my bag. So I'm always going to shit on those because they're just not it for me. But you might like them, listeners.
I mean, there are some people
B-siders.
who find them to be comfort films.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
There's
You
not my
like what
cup of tea.
movies you like. I like a lot of shit. Lily doesn't like it. Bums me out a little bit, but it's like, well, all right, whatever. You're your own human being. Um,
I know.
So yeah, also, helping promote things like for, David and,
Yeah.
talk about, Love Song of William H. Shaw and, the Pondo Boys and everyone, Jeff and, Hilton,
Oh, yeah.
we want to get it out there and help us reach those places. So not only go to the Patreon, but on your platform that you're listening to us on, please subscribe.
Yep.
Please leave a review on that platform because it all like fucking comes together somehow magically.
Yeah.
For algorithms and all these places. Share a link to it with folks.
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you know somebody who's like, even if they're like doing stage plays, send them a link.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's a different color horse, but it's the same stable everybody's in, right?
Right. Do you know someone who's in film? Tell them about us, and maybe we'll cover a film that they're in or talk to them.
Yeah. Info at lordsofmisrulproductions.com. That link is on the website. Everyone, reach out to us. We've made the call out last episode. The end of year retrospective.
Yes.
Right. Keep sending us stuff. Give us ideas. What would you like us to cover? Who would you like us to highlight that just has been completely missed? Right. Somebody and somebody that you enjoy, somebody's movies you enjoy, somebody you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, maybe it's you.
Maybe
you're like, I've been at this for 15 years. I could use a fucking break. Talk to us. Tell us what we can go out there and see, and we'll start working on it. Because it is whether we like it or not. Movies are movies. Every movie has a lesson. Unfortunately, to get those lessons across, we need some cash. Podcast
much like an independent film, we'd like this podcast to pay for itself.
Well, yeah, we're not Terrifier 3. We're not expecting to make 14 times our budget in the first week.
By the way, David and Damien, way to go.
Right? Yeah.
Also, everyone else involved in that production, but principally,
It'll probably happen before this if I get things going, but we're going to repost the David Howard Thornton interview from Terrifier.
Yeah.
Because what a guy.
That movie's so hot. And that interview's so good.
Yeah. And it's funny because I've heard him because he's all over the place now.
Yeah.
He was and still is just this really cool, down to earth, sweet guy. And I love this interview, being able to put it back out because nobody had any clue this was ever going to end up like this.
I know.
But it also, just real quick, Terrifier 3.
Out in theaters.
World record. It is the highest grossing unrated movie ever.
Hell yes.
Yes. So anyway.
Well deserved.
Very much so. All right. B-siders. As always, thank you for listening. Please do all the stuff. Please do the sharing and stuff. Because we just really want to keep going with you.
We love you very much.
That's a little.
Our B-siders?
Yeah. It just always sounds weird to me hearing it. I don't know. Well, it's not like I detest them.
Well, I do. Maybe Jim doesn't.
It just when it comes out suddenly like that, it's like, we love you very much.
It's in the wrap up of the. Okay,
I know, but usually it's a different tone. Like, we love you guys, and thank you, and we're it's just wow.
Yeah, no, I do. I love the B-siders. Jim apparently does not.
Okay, let's move on.
All
right, B-siders. Thank you for listening.
Until next time.
We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.